1 minute to go.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's great to see such a big crowd here today. I have a feeling that a lot of folks are on the internet, so hello to the internet world and to folks that are joining us that way. We have a great final day for you all. So welcome. This is the topic of today is Keep Toronto Moving. This is it for the term, at least from a city civic labs point of view. I know some of you still have a class or two to go, and some of you, this is it today. Boy, did it ever go quickly. It feels sometimes like it went very, very quickly and too quickly. So let's start with a land acknowledgement before we get into a whole bunch of things. As this meeting is both in person and virtual, and we are not all gathered in the same space, I recognize this land acknowledgement may not be for the territory that you are currently on. We ask that if this is the case, you acknowledge the traditional territory you are on and the current treaty holders. For those of us who are in Toronto, I'd like to acknowledge that the land we are on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people, and is now home to many diverse nations, Inuit and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississauga of the Credit. So my name is Joe Mihevik, for those who don't know me, and I am the prof for the York University side of CivicLabTO. Just some business things as we get started. This class, just to say it yet again, is presented by the Strategic Partnerships and City Manager's Office within the City of Toronto in collaboration with 8. There are 4 colleges, 4 universities in the City of Toronto. All of them, each and every one of them, has participated in this collaboration with the City of Toronto, and it is unique. If you look at other cities in the world, sometimes they are coming to us now saying, oh, how do you do that? How do you get the practitioners of building a city chatting with the future folks who are going to be urban geeks or planners or teachers, or somehow find a way to weave the learnings that you take from this class into your future careers. Some housekeeping reminders. Today's session is being recorded, and participants are asked not to share any personal information within the meeting. Of course, this session is being recorded as well, and within a few days, you go to CivicLabTO.ca, and you will find it, and your instructor will make it available to you. If you joined us in person here, welcome, and please note that it's good that you avoid, with your computers, avoid the WebEx webinar. It just screws up the technology here. And another reminder, the washrooms are over there, and over there, and you know what, if you sneak, there's one behind here as well. We We'll have Q's and A's at the end of this, at the end of the presentations, as we always do. If you're joining the session virtually, go to the bottom right and write in your questions. That goes to Jeff. Jeff sends me a text, and you can have your question addressed, and we will try to address it if you're in the internet world. If you're not in the internet world, as you know, if you're seated at these chairs, you press the button, and you will be able to ask your question. If you're seated up there, we have a roving mic reporter. Who's got the mic today? There we go. Professor Gus has the mic, and he will find you, and you will be able to ask your questions. Don't hold back. I know these folks here. Ask them the tough questions on a very tough topic. Okay, so today's focus is on mobility in Toronto. This is a huge topic, and I'll say one thing for certain, that the holidays are coming up, and here's what's going to happen. You're going to go visit your friend, your family in Kitchener or in Barrie or in Peterborough or downtown Toronto or uptown Toronto, and what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to complain about the weather, and the second thing you're going to do is say, oh, was it ever a bummer getting here? And then you're going to talk about the vehicular traffic on the 401, or how hard it was to get here on TTC, or how easy it was to get through the city, and so on. It is something that we kind of love to talk about in the city of Toronto when we travel around or in the greater Toronto area, is mobility, how this city keeps moving. Great cities have great mobility systems. So where does Toronto fit into the mix of commute times? Did you know that Statistics Canada shows that Toronto workers have the longest average commute times in the country, and often even in North America, sometimes even longer than, depending on the year, than Los Angeles, which has historically had that place. We have an average on public transit of 50, the average ride for a resident on public transit is 55 minutes. If you're in a car, the average ride time is 35 minutes. Is this just life? That's the way it is? Or are there better ways and strategies to keep Toronto moving? What is the global best practice? If you look at Denmark and the Netherlands, they are top of the world in terms of cycling infrastructure. Is that a way to build better mobility in Toronto? Is that the way of the future? Or should we be removing bike lanes, as is being directed by the Premier of Ontario? How about being a transit city like Moscow, Tokyo, or Vienna? Do you know that Vienna is about the same size as Toronto, 3 million people? And guess what? Their ridership is double on an annual basis to what Toronto's doing. What are they doing? Is there anything we can learn there? Maybe there's a paper in there for you as an undergraduate student, or eventually an graduate student. Should we be focused all the energy, and we have, of course, I'll introduce them in a second, should we be focused at the TTC on really doing ridership growth, or should we be spending tough to get dollars, transportation dollars, on a tunnel along the 401, which is being advocated by Premier Ford? Which is the way to go? If you look at this historically, if we were here 100 years ago, 80 years ago, and you said, what's Toronto's dominant way that we get around? How do we get around? You know what the answer would be? The streetcar. Do you know that during World War II, streetcar ridership in the city of Toronto was over 300 million rides? Guess what the ridership number is for us now, this year? Something like 430. So only 100 million more rides now than a while ago. So the dominant way at that time was public transit and streetcars. Then after World War II, what happens? We discovered this thing called the car. And so we built a whole infrastructure to facilitate the cars. So the answer 100 years ago was public transit. The answer in World War II, post-World War II, was sprawling suburbs, was the vehicle, private vehicle. And now your generation is going to have to figure out, how mobility happens in this city of ours for the next generation. These are big questions. And it's certain that Toronto has to do better on the mobility front, but choosing smart directions is the public conversation that is happening, needs to happen, and we know that those debates can be pretty intense. And that's precisely what we're going to talk about today. So to do this, we have 3 speakers, and there'll be a 4th speaker at the end. Hang on to your seats, because there's a whole bunch of things that we have to do at the end of class, but we want to get right into the conversation around mobility. And we have Mateen Mahboubi, who's the manager of capital projects and programs within the City of Toronto. We have Edna Kuvin. I hope I didn't butcher your names. Yes, Wade, thank you. Edna, Program Director for the Transit Expansion Office in Fort Monaco. I have the pleasure of working with him at the TTC, who's the Interim Chief Operations Officer at the TTC. So these are heavy dudes that are responsible for helping the city formulate the right policies for how Toronto is going to be better in the mobility area in the years to come. So I think Mateen, you are first up. So welcome to Mateen. Welcome everyone again, and we look forward to your comments.
Thank you so much, Professor Mahevic. That was great. What a great introduction, and definitely touching on a lot of the points that I intend and I believe my fellow panelists intend to touch on. You're going to find a heavy transit focus here. Yes, I would argue that going forward, definitely a refocusing on transit is going to really give a lot of us better options to get around the city. If you go to the next slide, please. My name is Mateen Mahboubi. As was said, I am the manager of capital projects and program within the City of Toronto Transportation Services. So it doesn't feel like that long ago, but based on the dates, nearing 20 years since I finished my undergrad at University of Toronto in engineering, followed by my master's, and since then I've had some stints in both the private sector and then the public sector around 2018, transitioning from the Ministry of Transportation to the City of Toronto. Next slide, please. So I don't expect you to know these numbers or to learn these numbers, and they're somewhat outdated, but this is just mainly to show the scale of the transportation network within just the boundaries of the City of Toronto. Now we're about 3 million, but the transportation network is not able to grow. We're nearly fully built out as far as the number, the kilometers, the lanes that we will build in the City of Toronto, and it's now about working within that infrastructure to move people efficiently. As was said, we spent so long focusing on moving cars that I think we lost the plot on moving people. So I'm not going to read this to you. This is, the transportation services definition of what we do and where we do it, but only to say that, transportation services responsibilities are on the right of way. And the right of way is not only between the curbs, the pavement, but also the sidewalks, the boulevard, really up to the property line, fronting the hundreds of thousands of buildings across the City of Toronto, really, and all of those together make up our transportation network. And this last bullet touches on a bit of some of the focuses in the last 10, 15 years, and like I mentioned, moving away from focusing on moving cars to starting to think about things like equity, moving people, safety, economic and social sustainability, thinking about how the transportation network impacts the entire population. Next slide, please. This is just a very quick slide about my unit, Capital Projects and Program. It is kind of a transformational unit that's focused on, not just state of good repair and fixing what's out there, but also thinking about ways that we can improve the transportation network. So these are two of the bigger kind of portfolios within my unit. So the cycling network plan, a medium to long-term vision of where and how cycling infrastructure can be delivered within the city. And as was highlighted, somewhat being impeded by some of the provincial legislation in the last coming few years. And then the RapidTO Service Network plan, which I will go into a lot more detail within this deck. But going back, I want to really focus on some of the collaboration and the strengths and the really great work that's been developed over the last, let's say, decade between the City of Toronto Transportation Services and the TTC. So I want to start with the King Street Transit Priority Corridor. So not too far from here, and if you've spent a lot of time downtown, you will know that the King Street Corridor doesn't operate the way that some of our other streetcar corridors work. And it really was brought forward to address challenges. You know, challenges are still faced with our other transit corridors, but this was one that was deemed to be a really high priority of efforts that needed to be done to make sure that we were improving transit service and reliability. So again, you can see from this photo, the streetcars are heavily impacted by congestion, from general purpose traffic, from parking, and really one left turning vehicle can delay a streetcar filled with hundreds of people. And you know, where these are the questions we're being asked every day, is that acceptable? What can we do about that? Again, old numbers, this is kind of from around 2016 when this project was starting to be envisioned, but it's really to show kind of the order of magnitude that we're looking at on something like the King Corridor. In this case, you know, indicating 72,000 riders every day were using this corridor, more than, you know, at that time Line 3 and then Line 4, 2 subway corridors even. How many people are connected through this corridor? How many businesses are connected? It really highlights the importance of a corridor like this in moving people across the city. And kind of this high level work, and this is very high level, but these are the kind of things that we start with to justify these kind of projects, especially when we're working on transformation that, you know, will impact some road users more than others. But these are the ways that we try to highlight that, you know, sometimes the criticism against our project is that we should be more balanced, but we have to highlight that there's already an imbalance in the road network, and we need to rebalance that to focus on the actual goals of that road network. And this is just kind of more data that shows how slow the actual streetcars were operating. You know, that red band there shows, you know, around 6 to 8 kilometers an hour. And, you know, at some points you will have heard the criticism, sometimes just get out and walk. And really why we need to focus on the hundreds of people on those streetcars, and is it acceptable that they're operating so slowly? But again, even beyond just the mobility, we also have to focus on the other goals, and then also trying to make sure that we're not impacting other ways that are unexpected, right? Again, I think a lot of you will probably echo the sentiment that, you know, giving people access to businesses will increase their revenues and to meet the goals, the economic goals, but that's not always obvious, and sometimes it needs to be demonstrated through, you know, study and research, but these are ultimately the goals. It's not just moving the people, but also to make sure that King Street works better for everybody. And as part of that process, you know, typically open to all is a very intensive public meetings, stakeholder consultation program, developed usually in this case over years of meetings and coming back and taking in feedback and revising and you know, making sure that we're responsive to that feedback. Again, keeping in mind that all the projects that we're working on are for the people, are for the city, are for improving that transportation network. So, you know, we can't be too myopic in focusing on what we think is best, but we have to make sure that we're getting that input. Again, sometimes that input is contrary to the goals of the program, but that's all part of the process in trying to make sure that that also informs our education, making sure that we're, you know, informing the people of why we're doing something, where we're doing it, and how they will benefit and how they can interact with the consultation process. So again, if you know, either you don't remember what it was like before or you haven't been down there, you know, the top graphic there shows kind of that mixed use operation that used to exist. To the bottom, again, these are somewhat not necessarily what was put there. You know, sometimes there are compromises in there, but it was essentially the goal was to remove through traffic from the corridor, so that general purpose through traffic would have to turn when they got to intersections, whereas the streetcar could proceed. And then using some of that excess curb lane for either activations, for public realm activations, for loading, for the transit stops, again, to really highlight to to those using the corridor that this is a transit corridor. Transit is a priority versus the other modes of traffic. Please. And then kind of the last step when you do implement a program of this magnitude is to make sure that you're still building in that trust from people that, we're monitoring it, we're going to make sure it's working, we're going to modify it if we identify challenges. And really, we started working on these really, again, I call them innovative, but sometimes they're pretty obvious of like, let's put permanent counters in. Let's really focus on measurable outcomes and be able to share those share them publicly, be very transparent with the data, as well as to make sure that they're accessible. Sometimes we get in our engineering mindset and we look at numbers and we understand them, but making sure that those are easily read by the members of the public. And that leads to something like this, which were regular dashboards that were produced in the early days to make sure we were highlighting those changes. And not only that, but also highlighting the challenges, right? If there were things that could be improved, that, weren't working as well as they could, in this case, bring them back to, for example, council and say, council, we need authorization to make these other changes because that will improve the program, as opposed to kind of highlighting or even hiding, let's say, some of the challenges, making sure that we're transparent and open. I think that's the way we also build that trust, that, although, yes, there were many positives, like if we also highlight the challenges, we can work to address those and also improve processes in the future. Now looking forward, right, Toronto is a growing city. We have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people coming to the city every year. And as I highlighted earlier, the transportation network is not growing. If you imagine all these condos going up, adding, 1 or 2 cars per unit, I was going to say we would get to, gridlock and congestion, but we're already there, right? It's simply not feasible that we can simply keep adding cars to the road, and it will work. So we really need to think about strategies to move people more efficiently. So building on kind of that King Transit corridor, and recognizing that 70% of TTC journeys eventually end up on surface transit routes, either buses or streetcars, and that those buses and streetcars are often facing delays because they're mixed in. They are in mixed traffic. We recognize that there were many more opportunities to improve transit service across the city. And not only that, but some of these are very low infrastructure solutions that just require us refocusing and reprioritizing the use of the roadway in order to improve transit. And I know some of my colleagues will speak to the more infrastructure intensive programs, but these are much cheaper, much easier to produce, and essentially act as a stopgap to that more higher order transit and really align with all of the policy documents that are continually being developed throughout the city. So some of the typical transit solutions that I'm talking about here, queue jump or bypass lanes that help buses get through intersections faster, improved pavement marking, signage. But one of the key things that we're looking at is these kind of red painted bus lanes. There's a lot of key arterials that move a lot of people with buses, and we have to understand whether or not we can move them a bit more efficiently. So one example, since the King Transit Priority Corridor was the Eglinton East Transit Priority Corridor, again, using one of the curbside lanes in order to give that bus priority, painting it big and red, making it unmistakable as a transit lane, refocusing and using that let's say political capital to actually make a change that really signals to the community that these transit users are a priority throughout this city. We know that Scarborough has had a lot of challenges with transit investment, right? And this was really a key there to show that those many hundreds of thousands of people using those buses every day are just as important as the vehicles driving on there. And not only that, the bottom bullet there, if you're not familiar, neighborhood improvement areas are something that was developed through a lot of research into the areas in the community that have been historically underinvested in, and really making sure that we're recognizing that and focusing on continued investment in those neighborhoods. I didn't go into some of these numbers for the King Corridor, but again, part of the process in developing that was that significant public engagement. And I just wanted to share, some of the numbers here. We're talking about, online surveys with over 7,000 responses, letters, emails, phone calls, 200 people in person, and this was, early to mid COVID impacts, right? So people were actively engaged, and it is a lot. It is a lot to take in that impact, that feedback, but it is really important for the success of these projects, and also important when we need to get the buy-in, let's say, from the councillors to understand how their constituents are thinking and what is the general attitude around these kind of projects. And part of building on these kind of projects that got there is how we got to this full CivicLabTO surface network plan. This was a council-endorsed plan that really signaled the corridors across the city where transit should be prioritized. And we know this is not a near-term, early kind of, we're going to get these all done in the next 5 years, but this is also to signal wherever there's opportunities, we will ensure that we're refocusing our efforts to make sure transit is operating on these corridors, because they have been identified as moving many people and needing that priority. This is kind of an overview of what that looks like. These are kind of 3-year programs, or each project will take about that long to get from that feasibility stage to the design stage to the public consultation, council, and delivery. So, as much as I call them low infrastructure and quick delivery, there is still quite a significant process to deliver these. We don't rush them through. We don't just, identify the corridor and paint it. All of those steps need to be done each time. Obviously, we build up more trust each time we do it and the projects are successful, but it is important for us to keep that in mind that, we do still need to get that buy-in from the community. We need to make sure that we're addressing concerns and we're doing it right each time. And through having done this a few times, those of you who remember a couple of years ago when the Line 3 was, had a derailing and was decommissioned, there was a very quick response within, around 6 months. We were able to go from, buses operating in mixed traffic to, we'll call them temporary transit corridors, in order to make sure that we're keeping the same number of people that were using the RT moving on those surface streets without significant delays to both to those riders who were kind of used to certain operating speeds and travel times. And then one of the more recent, if you've been down to Bathurst or Eglinton, you know that we were asked by council to deliver some CivicLabTO lanes accelerated for FIFA, as these were seen as key corridors to get people to and from the games. And those, we acted, we engaged, and, these are going to be the first kind of urban, downtown-ish corridors, and are really ones that are going to show how important these kind of programs are in, highlighting the importance of moving people through transit. These are key corridors, they move a lot of people. If you've ever ridden Dufferin, I know those of you, now the subway goes there, but back in my day, people would ride the Dufferin bus to York University. It lives up to its reputation of being called a Suffering because it's slow, it's crowded, it's not reliable. And these kind of programs are what's going to help us, not only reduce travel times, but also, support the TTC and allowing them to, eliminate or reduce bunching and just keep those buses moving. So the last slide I have here, just kind of an overview of kind of the opportunities and challenges with programs like this and that continued collaboration between us at the city and then the TTC. TTC has committed to funding these projects, and we really want to be side by side working with them, do those feasibility studies, do those designs. We are the asset owners, so there has to be that collaboration, but obviously recognizing the need to move people, the city is fully committed into entering that partnership and working with the TTC. Again, as I noted, a lot of the city's goals and policies align perfectly well with moving people and transit. These are really important programs and projects, and the TTC is doing work that cannot be done by anyone else. As was mentioned, millions and millions of people are moving with transit, and if those transit services get reduced, if they go, people will not be able to move. That's just the reality. Everyone cannot move in personal vehicles. But then, there are the the ones we have to acknowledge the challenges. We are working in a political environment. We are working with people who are uncomfortable with change, who are used to certain ways of getting around, who feel that their only option is to get in their car and make tons and tons of trips every day because safety or perceived safety that, but we have to continue to move forward and demonstrate the need and the importance of these kind of projects. And then in addition, the TTC sometimes gets a bad reputation for facing the financial constraints. There have to be some decisions that are made in order to make sure that the TTC is financially solvent. So really making sure that these projects are not seen as cost-saving projects, but more so service improvement projects, and that those savings are reinvested into the routes and the continued improvements in service. Yeah, I'm done. Thank you so much. I appreciate everybody's time.
Well, thank you, Mateen. So, pretend you're helping a candidate in the next election. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to knock on one door, and someone's going to ream you out for putting in bike lanes or putting in a bus rapid transit lane on Dufferin Street south of Bloor Street, which is going to happen for FIFA and on Bathurst. And you know what? You can blame that guy. You can blame Mateen because he's obviously behind the scenes working on this stuff. Some people would say, this is the war on the car guy at City Hall. Then you'll knock on another door and someone will say, holy smokes, how come you're moving so slowly, Mateen? We should be doing it faster, the way Paris is doing it. They use the pandemic as a way of really transferring people out of cars and into buses. So this is what you have to figure out. Your generation has to figure out. Is he whacked out or is he a forward thinker? Is the way this is going in a good direction or not so good direction? And we, of course, as a society, are not of one mind. So you're going to have to figure out this for the next 20 years. Okay, to help us further with that conversation, we have Edna Kuvin, who's the program manager at the city's Transit Expansion Office.
Good morning, everybody. So again, I'm coming from the Transit Expansion Division, and Edna Kubin, that's my name, Program Director for a group in Transit Expansion called Strategic Initiatives. So I'll say more about that. I was reflecting as Mateen was talking, right? I'm a canoeist, and I feel like sometimes I can paddle faster, going from one point to the gardener on some days. So said, okay. But I love Mateen and the work that he does, and we work very closely together. And I hope through the presentation today, you will understand all of the different components that come together to try to improve how Toronto moves through the city and improve how our day-to-day works. All right, so just a cover slide, and you will get a copy of the presentation, I assume. Those are the map that you see on that cover slide actually shows all of the different alignments that the Transit Expansion Division is currently working on, and you can find that in the city website as well. To begin, I just want you guys to understand where we sit in the constellation of groups in the city of Toronto, how that assists in how we do our day-to-day. So we sit in the infrastructure services group. We are kind of group with all of the other divisions that deliver capital infrastructure. So we do plan, design, construct, and prepare, testing, commissioning, and prepare things for operations, as well as do maintenance. In the Transit Expansion Division, we are firmly focused on delivering projects, specifically major transit infrastructure projects. All right, next slide, please. All right, this slide just runs through the division's mission and vision. Newly minted, actually, for 2025. Our division is fairly new. We were established in 2020 during the pandemic. I actually joined the division at that time. So we have been evolving how we think and what our focus is as a division. So plainly speaking, our division is focused on transforming how Torontonians live, move, and connect locally and regionally for the benefit of 7 generations to come. So with a reference to the indigenous 7 generations principles. And we do this by inspiring collaboration and leveraging our collective expertise to drive the delivery of an efficient and a sustainable transit network. So our mission really is to enable timely, coordinated, and city-building delivery. So it's not just the infrastructure, but something that supports the development, the enhancement of the city that we all live in. And to work through all of the intergovernmental and interdivisional complexities and strengthening the systems and partnerships that make this transformative transit possible. So we are the system integrator within the City of Toronto for the delivery of transit infrastructure. And we have oversight that on the all of the efforts that align standards, policies, risk, and decisions across all of the divisions and our partners, such as the TTC, to reduce delays, duplication, and conflict, and enable consistent, predictable, and coordinated support, not just for the City of Toronto transit projects, but also for those that we support for the province Metrolinx and the TTC. And we serve City Council, we serve our partners, but most of all, we serve the communities of the City of Toronto in the work that we do on a daily basis. Next slide, please. All right, this is just a picture of the leadership team structure of Transit Expansion Division. Hard to read with all of the boxes, but you can look at it more closely in your copy. So basically, we have our executive director, and then we have two major groups within transit expansion. One is about program planning, and the other one is about capital implementation. My team, strategic initiatives, sits within the program planning side of our business. And what we do mainly is to deliver the city priority transit projects, such as Smart Track used to be mine until we started building it, and Eglinton East LRT and Waterfront East Transit. Those are key projects that are being delivered through my team. And we carry the projects from business case through construction completion. And we also coordinate cities' participation in the early phases of transit projects, for example, subway program or the GO expansion. If it's in the initial phases prior to it goes to implementation phase, our group also gets involved in that. And I'll just go back to the slide, please. And also, we carry out a lot of different studies that support organization readiness for the delivery of all of these transit projects. Okay, next slide, please. So there are a lot of factors to consider in major transit project delivery, as you can imagine. And, there's a lot of bullets here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I think, I'll just pick out a few. First is that, as we all know, case in point, the Eglinton Crosstown, we have delivering transit requires an extended time frame, and it's very complex. It spans many years, sometimes decades, depending on the nature of the project. And because of that, it requires a strong planning, foresight on what might happen in the future, and as well as adaptability over time, because many things can happen in the course of delivering the transit project. I would also highlight that transit has broad and lasting impacts. And that's why we also modified or refined our vision to talk about 7 generations, right? It changes how the city is organized. Transit can change how the city is organized. Opportunities for housing, economy, community development for generations. It does affect the urban structure for a very long time. So we have to be very careful where we locate those alignments to make sure that it supports the connectivity that we're all striving for by embarking on these projects. And maybe I'll highlight also that it requires specialized expertise. So the obvious ones are engineers, designers, environmental assessment specialists, but let's not forget that we need people who are continuously engaging communities because of the long process and the broad impacts that, especially construction, we all are aware of that with all of the transit projects happening in our city right now. We need to be constantly engaging communities and informing them on what's happening. And I cannot emphasize enough the importance of political will. This is what we need this crucial champion to be able to move, to be able to even initiate and advance and fund transit projects. So the support of across different levels of governments through the different election cycles is very important in keeping the project moving. And lastly, maybe I'll pick out community benefits. We don't build transit just as an infrastructure for its functionality. We need to make sure that across the years and the decades that we build transit, that when we operate transit, that the benefits that were identified through the business case process are maintained throughout the delivery process, as well as when the transit is already in operation. So, you may be wondering, how did I get here? How do I get to do this incredible work, this privilege, right? Just a little bit about myself. My background is in architecture. So I don't know if any of you have taken architecture as an undergrad. So I did my architecture degree, my program at the University of the Philippines a long time ago. And I did my master's in urban design at the University of Hong Kong. And prior to coming to Canada, so I'm an immigrant here from 2002, I worked in Hong Kong as an architect and as an urban designer for about 10 years. So I'm kind of old. Some of you are probably the age of my children, but that's okay. And during those 10 years in Hong Kong, like I was involved in this multi-building, kind of mega project thingies. And one of the highlights was I worked on the redevelopment of when Kai Tak Airport was relocated to Lantau Island, so the airport there. So we did a master plan for 6 new towns with 6 subway stations on the land that was vacated by the airport and the reclaimed adjacent land. So that was pretty exciting to be part of those things. And after moving to Canada in 2002, I was fortunate enough to join the Toronto Public Service almost immediately. And, I was very excited for the chance and the privilege to shape the city where my family is going to grow for generations. And, getting involved in transit, so I was in city planning for 18 years before I joined Transit Expansion. And I was super excited to be involved. First projects I got involved in were the Metrolinx LRT program, the Eglinton Crosstown that I'm still waiting to open. And anyway, I was really excited for that because when we first got here, can you imagine? I don't know, some of you may be coming from Hong Kong, but it was a little bit of a shock. The modest scale of development and the transit lines were like just a few lines, and it became a personal quest actually to contribute to not only growing the city, but when the opportunity came to actually build transit. So I'm still waiting for the first line that I got involved in, like Crosstown, to actually open, which hopefully is in the next few weeks, right? Yes. Okay. So the City of Toronto has given me a lot of opportunities, and I'm hoping that today and based on the previous sessions of this program, that you all can see yourself maybe in the future joining the public service. And hopefully we're all enthusiastic in the projects that we're showing you today. All right, so enough about me. Going back to the presentation. Next slide, please. So another slide with a lot of bullets about the different delivery components involved in the delivery of transit projects. There's a lot. And these are not necessarily a sequence, but some of these processes are overlapping from start to finish. Some of them, for example, business case, it's not just at the beginning. You carry that like at different stages of the project to make sure that you're hitting the mark in terms of the benefits of the project. But, you know, I'd like to say it all starts with the policy foundation. This is the vision that sets the priorities of which lines are going to be built. Therefore, you know, you need to pay close attention, for example, to the provincial plans, the official plan, and all of the legislations being introduced by the province that ultimately impact at municipal level, what is it that we're able to or not able to deliver as far as transit goes. So another key piece here is governance. When we talk about governance, this is not just the organization in terms of all of the expertise needed to deliver the project, but really it's about coordination, how we work together. We capture that in a document. For example, on Eglinton Crosstown, there's a master agreement. It talks about roles and responsibilities, who does what, sharing of cost, and what standards we apply. So governance is a very important piece on how we work together in order to deliver transit. Another important thing here is constructability assessments. When I joined transit expansion, you know, we have all of these plans, you know, all of these different concepts, including maybe the Eglinton East LRT, you know, they're good to go and advance to the next phases of design. But the missing piece, missing kind of phase in that process is the constructability assessment. And that's where we discover a lot of the issues when a project actually hits the ground. If you look closely and you refer back to some of the staff reports presented to City Council and the decisions around Eglinton East LRT, you can see there how important constructability the important role that constructability assessment plays in understanding whether we can build a project or not. So that's one thing that's I would emphasize is important in what we do in transit expansion. Just making sure that we are actually have a viable project beyond concepts and feasibility studies. And another thing that the City of Toronto is responsible for, that I would say is ranked as one of the highest risk, I think second highest project risk in the risk assessment for projects, at least this is what Metrics tells us, is the permits, licenses and approvals. And this can really hold up a transit project if they are not delivered on time. And in the examples that I'm going to show, I'm going to talk a little bit about, you know, how this plays out depending on the manner that the project, transit project is delivered. So, you know, so building transit is really more than just the construction of the alignment. It's about connecting policy, design, funding, governance, and all of these things that make sure that we are accountable for every stage, that we have a feasible project, and that we maintain the benefits that we hope to get for the communities that are impacted by the projects themselves. Next slide, please. All right, we'll go into the two examples. This is kind of a favorite, Eglinton Crosstown LRT. I'm sure everybody's super excited. I don't know if you've seen it. As an urban designer, I would say my favorite is the Green Trackway. Has anybody, people have seen the Green Trackway? When we were debating whether, well, we're negotiating with Metrolinx, right? I'm an urban designer, and I had a special interest in the Green Trackway, and we weren't sure if Metrolinx is going to give it to us. We had like a bag of grass seeds ready to go that we can sprinkle on the on the ground if they didn't agree. But anyway, that's a fun fact. But it's a very long alignment. It's 19 kilometers long. In fact, actually, there's two more pieces to this: the east and west that were originally part of the alignment, but they were I guess, deferred for future implementation because the 19 kilometers is already long enough. And if you're keeping abreast with all of the transit projects, you know that the west section is being delivered by the province, by Metrolinx. It's called the Eglinton West Extension. So ECWE. And one of the other projects that my team is looking after is the Eglinton East LRT. So those are the two ends of the Eglinton crosstown alignment. And one interesting thing about the Eglinton crosstown, while I was in city planning, we also carried out a study, a planning study called Eglinton Connects. And the purpose of that study was to optimize growth opportunities along the alignment so that we can maximize the benefit of the transit investment. So feel free to look at that planning study because all the recommendations and the outcomes of the study are now reflected in the developments that are happening along the corridor. And yes, and you're welcome, Metrolinx, because now all of the TOCs along the alignment are actually happening. All right, so next slide. So I would just like to emphasize the point that because Eglinton Crosstown is provincially led project delivery, that the city doesn't have the same control that we would have had we been delivering the project ourselves. One example is that because of the delivery model adopted for this project, it's a specification-based model. The city is kind of compelled to commit to requirements that would otherwise only be approved once the design has been completed. In the case of Eglinton Crosstown, the city had to commit to requirements at specification base when the design wasn't actually finished. Okay, next slide. Next example is the Waterfront East Transit. This one is city-led. The nuance for this project, next slide. The nuance for this project is that there is tri-government interest on this project. It has a critical role in waterfront revitalization. So as much as the city has greater control in how we deliver this project, we also are very mindful of the priorities that the province and the federal government have on the delivery. And this is specifically, I would share with you, and you can see this in the staff reports related to this project. It's related to the development timelines of Okwimon Minising, or the Portlands. And the timelines for first occupation of buildings on Okwimon Minising are driving some of the timelines for the delivery of the project. The benefit, though, is that the city is able to manage the different phases and decisions around how the project is evolved in contrast to something that is led by the province. So next slide. All right, I just want to thank everybody. So this is a lot of information. Feel free to ask questions. I just want to say that my hope is that you are all inspired with all the exciting work that the city does, how transformational all of these projects are, and that someday I hope that you see yourself joining the public service. Thank you. I didn't get to give my little...
Oh, yes. Edna is ready to take questions after the next speaker, and she's got a little bonus. If you ask a question, you get some swag. You get one of these buttons here that says, "Keep Toronto Moving." And you may want to ask her, you know, I have these files from the year 2008, and when I was on council, and one of the articles was, I was quoted as saying, "Don't worry, people. We'll get this Eglinton thing done, and 2016 will roll around very quickly." And now it's 2025, and it's still not open. So are you the red tape, Edna? Or are you the facilitator that gets rid of the red tape? Maybe that's a question that some of you might have of her. Why did it take us so long to do that? What can we learn as urbanists and as transit people in the construction of that project? Our last speaker is Fort Monaco, who's the Interim Chief Operations Officer at the TTC. Over to you, Fort.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, and as Professor Mahevic said, I'm in Fort Monaco, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here today to just tell you a little bit about what the TTC is doing to keep Toronto moving. So quite simply, we're attempting to modernize our network through state-of-the-art repair projects while utilizing technology to modernize our approach to managing our subways and our streetcars. I'll highlight three key projects that are either in the concept stage, are either in full flight or are complete, while leveraging partnerships to the mutual benefit of all, with the customer experience first and foremost in mind. Next slide, please. So let me start by giving you a snapshot of the TTC. You folks probably know a lot about these stats, but I'll go through them anyways. We're the third largest system in North America. A responsibility that underscores our value and I guess how we're at the core of keeping Toronto moving. We serve about 673,000 fare-paying customers, and when you include transfers, that number climbs to close to 1 million. So as you can see, TTC is absolutely essential in the lives of many Torontonians. In 2024, we delivered more than 420 million trips, about 204 million by bus, 181 million by subway, and nearly 35 million by streetcar. Now, these figures do reflect a strong recovery and growth since the challenges of COVID 2019. However, we want more ridership, we want more customers. Behind these numbers is 18,000 employees, and our fleet includes over 2,100, almost 2,200 buses, about 240 streetcars and growing, and 143 subway trains, plus paratransit and a host of non-revenue vehicles. And we're supported by 16 maintenance facilities. Our routes span over almost 6,500 kilometers for buses, 82 kilometers for streetcars, and obviously our subway lines. Next slide, please. So a little bit about me. I am the interim chief operating officer. I have almost 28 years at the TTC, and I spent many a summer as a TTC student. And so I began my full-time career after finishing electrical engineering program in McMaster, and I also received my MBA from Schulich School of Business at York University. Lots of opportunities at the TTC. I've been involved in a variety of different things, extremely rewarding career, and as Ed had mentioned, I hope that doing what I do is something that really interests you folks at some point. Next slide, please. Just a little bit more about myself. I did have the benefit and the pleasure of working very closely and overseeing the ATC Line 1 implementation project, which I'll speak a little bit about. I also had the honor of being the very first Chief of Infrastructure and Engineering Officer at the TTC in 2019, when it became very clear that state-of-good repair really needed to become a big focus for us to be successful. Next slide, please. So I'll move into the first project, which I highlighted a little bit, is just what we've done to modernize our Line 1 signaling system and our subway, a project that I was really proud of to be a part of for 6 years, and outline the benefits of what that has brought, along with what the eye to the future of what future signaling or resignaling projects will look like at the TTC. Next slide, please. So in 2008, the TTC embarked on a comprehensive modernization of its subway signaling system on Line 1 to enhance safety, reliability, and capacity. But also like to touch on the other lines as well, Line 2 and Line 4. This modernization effort on Line 1 meant addressing aging infrastructure and prepare the system for future growth and technological advancements. By upgrading to advanced signaling technology, the TTC aimed to deliver a better commuter experience and ensure operational efficiencies for decades to come. Next slide, please. Modernization is driven by the limitations of our current legacy signaling system, which really do restrict train frequency and overall capacity. Aging infrastructure increases risks of delays and obviously service disruptions, impacting the reliability and obviously passenger and customer satisfaction. Upgrading to a modern system ensures readiness for future demand, supports automation, and improves our safety standards. These changes are essentials in making a competitive and efficient transit system in a growing metropolitan area like Toronto. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, the signaling system to move trains for safe and efficient subway operation is absolutely key and vital. It prevents collisions by maintaining safe distances between trains, regulates speeds to ensure smooth traffic flow, and maintains train spacing dynamically. Additionally, it provides real-time location data enabling precise control and monitoring of the very smallest train movement. These functions collectively ensure safety, reliability, and optimal use of the track infrastructure. Next slide, please. Don't want to turn anyone into a signaling engineer, but I do want to give a very basic of what a signaling 101 looks like. So your traditional fixed block signaling system basically takes your track and divides it into a bunch of predefined sections and only allows one train per block. You cannot have consecutive blocks occupied. There always needs to be a block in between the trains. A new modernized system like CPTC, where automatic train control allows for continuous communication in between the trains and with the main control center, which allows the trains to become very, very, very close together. Some of you maybe have seen a very recent social media post where two trains became very, very close together at one of our downtown stations, freaked a few people out. But that's okay, the system is fine. As long as you maintain a particular distance, a particular speed, and you're within a safe stopping distance, you're good. What does that mean? That means we can put more trains out on the line, because the system in itself replaces what your traditional block system is, and that system will always maintain that safe braking distance between the two trains. Next slide, please. As mentioned, Line 1 underwent this major transformation where we replaced a 1954 system with the Alstom-Urbalis CPTC technology. The project was executed in phases between 2018 and 2022 to minimize service disruptions. Key thing, a lot of the work was done in the overnight periods. Significant planning and coordination was required. In September 2022, we finished, marking a major milestone in Toronto and TTC's modernization journey and setting a benchmark for future upgrades. Next slide, please. So modernization of Line 1 has delivered tangible benefits, including increased train frequency, like I explained, reduced delays, and improved energy efficiency. The other big thing about the Line 1 CPTC system, there's not nearly the amount of trackside equipment that there was with a fixed block signaling system. A lot of the equipment now is in back of the rooms. It's at the control center. So what does that mean? That means there's going to be less disruption of anyone needing to go down to do any sort of troubleshooting, because a lot of the troubleshooting happens in equipments in back rooms. Next slide, please. So what did we learn? The Line 1 project highlights the importance of a phased implementation. We did it in sections, we did it in blocks to minimize disruptions. And our decision to perform a significant portion of the work in-house. A lot of our folks constructed the ATC system, built the system, installed the equipment, allowed us greater control over quality and actual timelines. And those experiences underscored the need for robust planning, stakeholder coordination, and flexibility when managing complex infrastructure upgrades. Next slide, please. So what's next? So we want to expand the CPT technology to Line 2 with new train sets and a contract award that's expected in 2026, next year. Line 4, though, is a different story. It faces obsolescence risk and it requires migration strategies and funding for future upgrades. With this brief summary of our progress and future plans on our subway network, I'd like to now turn over to our surface network. Next slide, please. So unlike our subway, as been touched upon by my colleagues here, many of our 160-plus bus and 11 streetcar routes do not operate on their own right-of-way and need to share the roads with vehicles and anyone else our surface network is who uses our surface network, and we're fully cognizant of the challenges that we face. So I'd like to just really briefly touch on a pilot that we're currently working on called our bunching and gapping pilot, which aims to address. Next slide, please. So the objectives of the pilot was basically to focus our performance centered on bunching, which are vehicles too close together, and gapping, they're vehicles too far apart that disrupt service regularity and lower customer satisfaction. The focus were the 11 routes, 9 bus and 2 streetcars. I'll quickly run through what those routes were for your information. The 7 Bathurst, the 924 and 24 Victoria Park. You've heard about the challenges of Suffern. The 929 and 29 Dufferin, the 100 Flemington Park, and the 925-25 Don Mills, the 512 St. Clair, and the 506 Carleton. So we began in 2025 when we used our existing resources to get more field supervision out to the field. As the pilot progressed, results were not as expected, and in July of this past year, we found some offsets within the organization and put a more dedicated focus. And we reduced it from 11 routes down to 5 key routes. The key things, the key positions we added is better supervision from the control center and obviously much better in-field presence to be able to change and adjust to changing circumstances. In September, we were able to expand our pilot to 2 additional bus routes for a total of 7 routes, and in October, we went to 8. We've never been able to get to the full 11 all in one. Again, we're still in the early stages of this, but we were able to take the Dufferin 29 and 929 and Don Mills 25 and 925 recently and put it what we call into the control room to have a focus under this pilot. Next slide, please. I'll quickly just review some of the preliminary feedback. This is as of October. My colleague, my team, talked about a lot of the challenges that we're currently having. So we have the 7 Bathurst bus, the 165 Western Road, then 24, 924 Victoria Park, and the streetcars. As you can see, parked cars, priority left turns or vehicular left turns, overtaking, if you will, priority over our streetcars. Traffic, stop spacing is also something that you see in certain parts that does have an impact. Construction is a huge one. Parked vehicles, as my colleague Mateen spoke about, traffic lights not being suitable or being in mind, the transit vehicle in mind. Similar things with the 512 and the 506. And each of them have specific responses or strategies because some of these lines are rather large. And so ultimately, we've divided the lines into the hotspots that require a myriad of different possible solutions. Next slide, please. Partnerships we've heard are key, and a very recent partnership formed is with York University. And I'm pleased to report that an AI route management model is under development to demonstrate that the TTC is embracing AI to enhance its business practices and to what I believe may be the future of a better route management at the TTC. Next slide, please. I'll quickly review how route management works. So this is basically what our route supervisors see up at the control center. So on the left, you have our current cycle of route management with the key focus on monitoring on our CAD-EVL system. So what's CAD-EVL system? It's basically computer-aided dispatch and automatic vehicle location. It allows the supervisor to monitor the vehicles, and there's a communication link between the control center, the supervisors, and the operators. So as you can see, the CAD-EVL spits out the information, the supervisor monitors, and does that intervention with the vehicle operator. The beauty of this new proposed structure, what we're actually working on is, as you can see, AI kind of comes in and does some of that work for you. So the AI tool basically uses past performance and developing conditions to present real-time flags proactively to these route supervisors rather than reactively. Next slide, please. So what does this do for us? Well, it allows it to integrate with the existing data infrastructure. It uses AI to make holding recommendations. What's a holding recommendation? It just allows you to hold select vehicles where you need to be to make sure that that gap between the vehicles is more in line with the schedule and more in line, obviously, with the satisfaction of the customers. The beauty of this thing is it actually allows you to predict when bunching is going to happen before it actually happens or when gapping is happening. And then the beauty of this, and we haven't explored this part yet, is the what-ifs analysis. What if you were to remove parking in this particular area? What would that do to your transit system? What would happen if you removed X number of stops, if the stops are too closely paced together? So it allows you to kind of get some real-time modeling done and some predictive modeling done. Next slide, please. So what you quickly see here is our headway management tool. Green is good. Yellow isn't great, but most importantly, gray is good, and obviously blue, you're gapping. So this is basically what our folks actually see right now. It's our headway management tool as part of our CAD-EVL system. Next slide, please. Here's our AI tool. Don't expect you to see all the little bits and pieces of it, but this is the 165 Western Road, the 925 Dufferin bus route, and what you see is the buses on the route, but the chart on the right is the predictive model. So the chart on the right, what it does is it highlights based on past performance and developing conditions where possible vehicle holds are. So you won't be able to see this because it's really, really close, but it's really far. But you have an ETA possibly in 3 minutes, 4 minutes, you potentially have a bunching situation happening. Or in 3 or 4 minutes, you have a gapping situation. You may want to think about holding this particular vehicle. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, we definitely want to see the improvement. We're committed to it, and we really think that this is going to be potentially a real game changer for us. So now that I've talked a little bit about subway, talked a little about streetcar, I'm going to move very quickly to what an exciting project is the Rogers 5G overview. Next slide, please. So the Rogers 5G is a recent project that is meant to upgrade Toronto's transit communication infrastructure. I think next slide, maybe I said that too quickly. So Rogers acquired the previous operator and committed to building a neutral host 5G network that supports all major carriers. Next slide, please. The technological foundation of the 5G subway project relies on a distributed antenna system that delivers cellular signals throughout the underground environments. Radiating cables, are often referred to as leaky cables, are installed along the tunnel walls to ensure continuous coverage, while we have radio units amplifying the signal in very challenging areas. Next slide, please. So how does TTC fit into this? So we play a real critical role because we've utilized the very same model that allowed us to build the ATC Line 1 signaling system. We're using a lot of the same resources that are actually in the tunnels installing the Rogers Wi-Fi system. But we also oversee safety compliance, permitting, and obviously there has to be a very close tie into our asset management and scheduling of all the work that we need to do in that subway tunnel overnight. Next slide, please. So the rollout of the Rogers 5G is a phased approach, very much like ATC Line 1 does. And the targets do mandate that we're trying to get to 80% tunnel coverage by the end of this year, with full coverage completed by the end of 2026. Next slide, please. So obviously, I don't need to mention the ridership benefits, but I've put them up anyways. This is going to be a bit of a game changer for all of us in the ability to basically modernize our system to keep it in line with what industry best practices are. But the beauty, too, is that there is a network there, an additional network that we will be able to leverage in a variety of different ways that technology will allow. Next slide, please. So, sounds great. Working in a subway tunnel is not an easy. It is tight clearances. A lot of these tunnels were built in the 50s, and no one was thinking Rogers back in the 50s. Our tunnel walls are full of other equipment. How do you install radios? How do you install cooling fans? How do you install this stuff and do it all within an hour and a half a night? It definitely does have its challenges, but this is where subway closures and diversions become very key for us. Next slide, please. Thank you again very much. I know I covered a lot. I tried to keep it as high level as possible. Hit me with any questions you have for the Q&A. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Fort. You know, that was so transit geeky. And you know what? There are transit geeks over here in this room. Like, if you're really into the nuts and bolts of timing and spacing between vehicles and track work and all of that, the TTC is a place for you as a career option in the years to come. Okay, so now we have a few minutes for questions. If you're in the online world, bottom right, ask your question. They go to Jeff, they'll come to me. If you're here, you can ask a question. I'm going to start with one to give you 30 seconds to get your question juices going. And my question is this. There's a great song, If I Had $1 Million. Does that date me? If I had $1 billion and I gave you $1 billion and you had to take into consideration walking, cycling, public transit, vehicular traffic, how would you spend your $1 billion? What's the 3 big projects that you would do to keep Toronto moving forward? So that would be my question. Questions from you, and you know what? We're going to spend 3 minutes asking the questions, and then we're going to throw it all to you, so take notes on the questions, and then I'll give you each a chance because we only have a limited time. Right there. We're going to go this way.
Hi, guys. I do want to preface this by saying I'm from Scarborough, and if you're from Scarborough, you know that the TTC is terrible in Scarborough. It's a common thing that we all face. I understand that Scarborough, when it was first built, was supposed to be a car city. and we were underinvested in transportation and TTC. But I'm wondering, because we were underinvested at the time, should we invest more in Scarborough because of the challenges we face? We also have the most lowest income families in Scarborough, and the other opportunities like GO Train are too expensive. So I'm wondering if you're also looking at any innovative types of ways to change that. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Argo. I don't know if that's something that we could implement into Scarborough, if you've been thinking about that as well.
Great question. Okay, hold on, not yet. Right here. Stand up, be proud.
Yeah, for sure. So I have a very simple question, well, actually kind of complicated. So how does the city plan to keep pedestrians and bikers safe, given the elimination of both bike lanes and speed cameras? And like, what are the specific measures that you guys are planning on taking, like, for this topic in general?
Oh, great question, great question. Right here, and then we're going to go over there, right here.
Okay.
Yes.
Concerning this project, my priority project would be to start the installation of the platform screen doors.
Platform edge doors.
For subway platforms. I think that's very important.
I agree, totally. Okay, we'll get that right there.
Obviously, it's very complicated, all the reasons behind the delays around the Eglinton LRT and all that. But I'm wondering what lessons the TTC has learned to prevent future situations like that.
Good question, great questions. Okay, right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let's do this rapid fire.
Okay, I'm really interested in how the TTC can make real-time information for its services more reliable, accurate, and easily retrievable, especially in the context of when short turns happen. So I'm wondering what the protocol is for vehicle drivers and operators for announcing when a short turn will occur and updates on where and when the next through service will be.
Real-time information. Okay, good question. Over here.
I've got a question for Mateen about the King Street Transit Corridor. So the corridor has been in place, I think, for about 8 years at this point, and it's been permanent for at least 5. Yet there haven't really been any permanent like streetscape changes made. I know, in cities like Melbourne and Sydney that have upgraded tram networks, they've made those changes. So is that a plan in Toronto? Do we plan to learn from cities like that or elsewhere? Yeah.
Great question. Right here. Stand up, be loud, be proud.
I have a question about safety on the TTC. How does the city plan to address unstable individuals riding in and threatening passengers?
Great question. CBC this morning did a whole piece on that right there.
Yes, this is for Fort. I've got a question on how do you plan on removing slow zones, doing the same amount of maintenance with a lesser amount of closures, especially, for things as minor as station work, to not have to shut down part of a subway for an entire week and doing that, and perhaps learning from a city like Singapore, who's done transit maintenance really well, or even London, which, CEO Mandy Plali is from. I also wanted, this is for my friend who can make it, do you have a plan on making stations more aesthetically attractive, i.e. like fixing the ceilings and stuff like that?
Whoa. Okay, great question. Emily, last question.
Yeah, I have a question
Stand
for
up, be
Edna.
loud, be proud.
Oh, okay. I have a question for Edna. What determines if a transit project is provincially or city-led? Thank you.
Good question. These are great questions. Holy camole. Okay, so 2 minutes each. That's all, because we have another couple of speakers, but they're excellent questions. Certainly, you folks should hire this class in the various pieces of work that you do. So 2 minutes each. Sorry, and if your question isn't answered, drop my question. But all the other questions, if you can't answer them, then you come afterwards and harangue them a little bit to get that question answered. Okay, I don't know. Let's start with Mateen. 2 minutes.
Sure. So I will focus on obviously the questions that were to me. King Street pilot, then transit priority corridor. Often the biggest motivation is towards getting a project done, and then things slow down. Obviously, the pandemic didn't help. There is still interest in, improved streetscaping on King, but along with Professor Mahevic's question, if I had $1 million, I'm sure some of it would go to that. It often comes down to funding, and those are the sometimes seen as the nice to haves, right? Keeping pedestrians and people cycling safe with the political changes, we're dealing with that. We're trying to figure it out. You know, we always have developed a toolkit towards road safety. The Vision Zero Road Safety Plan is very robust and dynamic. Yes, these were key tools that we were really advancing and we knew were having significant impact, so they will be missed, but we will continue moving forward. Political winds may change and, you know, these programs may come back, but that's really a part of the priorities of the Transportation Services Division is improving safety. Investing more in areas that have been historically underinvested in, yes, it is something that we are mindful of and conscious of. It's a bit of a push and pull because the demands and the needs from a, you know, transportation movement are in certain places, but also recognizing those historical underinvestments is important for us moving forward.
Thank you, that was good. Edna, 2 minutes.
Oh, sorry. The question is about what determines if transit is city-led or provincially led, right? So maybe 3 factors. First is what is it's the policy priority. Is it a policy priority for the federal government, the province, or the municipality, and where the interests, the alignment of the interests in that regard? What is the second is the regional impact. Sometimes, for example, if it is seen as something that has a broader impact on the municipality, then an upload might happen. And then the third might be the political priority. Maybe it's the favorite system of the day. So you didn't hear me say that, but you know, and that kind of directs where funding goes, depending on the type of projects. But I think all of them all are considered all at once. It's not one thing that drives the other, but it's a process that kind of, those are 3 things that could drive whether a project is uploaded. So Eglinton East LRT is one of my projects, so I don't know, maybe the province will take it on, but for now it's mine.
Okay, so I think I was the popular guy, so let me try to hit this here. So, Professor Mahevic, I would say if I had $1 billion, I would spread it to safety, of which Platform Edge Doors is some, but I wouldn't do all 71 stations. I would do select stations. Second thing is I would continue to work with my team, invest money in keeping our surface transit system moving, because for me to fix the subway, I need more time than I currently have. Right now, if I shut down the subway, the surface network does not have the capability to match the subway. It just doesn't work. It's not functional. It's not possible. Second thing is Scarborough. I'm an ex-Scarborough person. I feel your pain 100%. I think we need to immediately paint the lines red in Scarborough to keep us moving. The Scarborough subway extension is coming. Hopefully it comes with CPTC, as you know now, because of the thing, you know what CPTC is, not fixed block, but we're working with Metrolinx on that. Safety at the TTC is a complicated question. It is a balance between the TTC and all its partners. It is a balance between giving people the help that they need, but also ensuring that our customers and our passengers feel safe. That could mean some enforcement. So it's a balance of everything. It warrants a lot more conversation. Lessons learned about Eglinton. Very tough question. TTC didn't build Eglinton. We're inheriting Eglinton. That's not to say that there's an opportunity to relook at that. Strategic partnerships is really important. Short terms, excellent question. I am putting a lot of stock in the AI. Why? Because we can look at using our CAD AVL to make real-time announcements. Now imagine I use an AI tool that can be very predictive and tells me in 3 minutes I need to do a short turn. I'll be able to tell you in 2 minutes and 55 seconds through my CAD AVL system that I'm going to be short turning the vehicle. Not there yet, but that's something that I'm really looking forward to developing. How's that?
Brilliant.
I'm impressed. Two-minute answers from a civil servant. Where do you see that? Okay, we do have, let's give them a round of applause for their work. There'll be a thank you in a minute. But we do have one more presentation here, and you know, I'd ask you to sit tight because this is the last class. We do have a few things, a few pieces of business that we need to take care of. I want to introduce Heather Tillock, Manager, Youth Development Unit, Social Development. They've been throughout the class, either in your home institutions or here. How do I get engaged? How do I, as a student, get engaged in all the different topics that we've covered this year. And Heather is going to speak a little bit about that. So let's give her a few minutes to talk about how we can do that.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. So my name is Heather Tillock, and I'm the manager of the Youth Development Unit. I also have the privilege of teaching as a professor part-time at Seneca College, so wearing, a couple of hats today, and just love the fact that I have the privilege of, being able to serve young people in both of my journeys here. So my background, I have a honors bachelor's from McMaster University in psychology. So, really interested in that study of human behavior and what makes people think. I have a management certificate from Schulich at York University, and finally a master's in adult education from OISE. So I've also kind of, done my time and tenure at a few different post-secondary institutions. So through this semester and through all of our previous speakers, you've heard the important challenges and opportunities in building our city, including ways to engage with municipal government. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about another way to engage through our Toronto Youth Cabinet, which is one of our programs that I'll talk about a little bit more in the presentation. But I just want to quickly say one of the things my students always ask me in class is, why do you work for the government? Like, it's so bureaucratic and there's so much administration and change takes such a long time. But you've heard from, my peers how important it is to be at that table so that we can, help move things along, move projects along, and being part of impactful decisions that are going to impact communities. So that's the same reason that I've chosen government, because it is an opportunity to impact the lives of young people, something near and dear to me, through the work happening at the municipal level. So why do you, affectionately called, our vision is that all youth, yourselves, young people from all across the city of Toronto can pursue their hopes and dreams and aspirations free of barriers based on race, gender, economic status, and geography. So it won't matter if you come from Scarborough, it won't matter if you come from the West End, it won't matter if you're from downtown Toronto. All of the youth across the city of Toronto have equal access to opportunities. We have a number of principles that govern our programming. I won't read them all, but just really youth-centered, culturally responsive, and really adaptable and inclusive. Again, ensuring that equity across the city of Toronto. Next slide, please. So we have a number of programs at YDU, and in the interest of time, I won't talk about all of them today, but we have three main baskets of programs. We have programs focusing on violence prevention and intervention, and that engages our young people most vulnerable to crime, who've witnessed crime, who've been engaged in crime, and really trying to take a restorative justice approach to helping folks again, ensure, you heard me talk about that last slide, equal access into opportunities and really just changing that direction. So we have a number of programs with the schools, with community agencies. We have community healing and restorative justice programs. Another area is our workforce development programs, and those are employment-focused programs where, again, we're really focusing on those young people who have multiple barriers to employment. For many of you, you're involved in post-secondary, and so perhaps your employment journey might be a little more straightforward. But we also have a number of young people who may not have, the ability to access post-secondary education or who have multiple barriers to employment. So really focusing on ensuring that we're leveling the playing field there. Again, a number of programs in that respect. I will give a shout out to one of our programs, ArtWorks-TO. I know our board chair is here, and a really innovative program that works really closely with Artworks and OCAD and a number of arts-based organizations to help young people move in the field of art. And then finally, I'll get to the real reason I'm here, our civic engagement, empowerment, and inclusion programs. So this is where we're building the leadership capacity of young people and really helping young people find ways to engage in the decision-making process across the city of Toronto. Next slide, please. So one of the primary ways that we do that is through our Toronto Youth Cabinet, and the TYC, as we affectionately call it, is Toronto's official youth advocacy body. So they, again, push us at YDU and across the city to ensure that young people and the needs of young people are at the center of the decision making. Our TYC folks are essentially between the ages of 13 and 24, so it's really great because they can start doing this work at a young age. They can start doing this work while they're still in high school and continue this work as they move into post-secondary and their post-high school careers. And folks get to work with counselors, community agencies, city staff, all across, really engage all across the city, again, to help us move the needle, especially in areas that really impact young people. Okay, next slide, please. All right, I'm wrapping it up. 1 minute. Okay, so our Toronto Youth Cabinet has a number of priorities for 2026. They're going to be working more closely with our Indigenous Affairs Office because we know that we need to make some inroads into the Indigenous community. Youth Week is coming up in May, so they're going to do a lot of work there. Of course, you've heard it mentioned many times, FIFA is coming up in June, so lots of opportunities to engage there. And then finally, next year is election, so there will be an opportunity to adopt a poll. So lots of cool opportunities coming. Next slide. I think that's it. I made it within my minute, and there'll be some opportunities. I'll stay around for questions.
Thank you, Heather. Thanks for sticking around afterwards. There may be questions, and people, of course, are invited to come up and ask. We do now have a student thank you. You have a minute each. Catalina, Emily. Let's start with Catalina. Okay, looks like Emily's. Go ahead, Emily. 1 minute to say thank you.
Hey, hi, I'm Emily.
Press your button.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Emily. I'm from New York University, and I'd like to say thank you to all of you speakers who have taught us something today. Thank you so much to Mateen. I loved your emphasis on low infrastructure solutions. I always thought of transit priorities as things like the separate lanes for the 510 Spadina streetcars, so that was really cool to hear about. Thank you to Edna for showcasing the intricacies of transit project development. It's really complicated. I really respect you for your job, and I hope you have fun watching the Eglinton Crosstown LRT opening in a few weeks. Thank you to Fort. I know we hear a lot about TTC complaints every day, but it's really cool to see what the TTC is working on improving and all of that. I didn't know a lot of that. So congratulations on your upcoming role as COO. And I know you're going to do great for the city. And thank you for Heather for showcasing youth opportunities and for working so hard on behalf of us youth. I know you were only able to give a shorter speech, but thank you so much. And I would also love to thank our professors for implementing this program, because I know I've learned a lot about the city that we love in the past few months. And now I know that, Toronto is a really cool place to be. So thank you so much for everything.
Catalina.
So I also want to thank the panel on behalf of York University students and to Mateen because of your insight on public transit achievements, challenges, and opportunities. I also want to thank Edna for breaking down the complexities behind building public transit. And I also want to thank Fort Monaco for highlighting how modernization and smarter opportunities are shaping the future of TTC. And to Heather Ticklock, I also want to thank you for wrapping up with a focus on youth-centered programs and yeah, for your support for young people in Toronto. It's very inspiring as an urban planner student. It's very inspiring to see like the people doing all this job that is a work that I hope to do one day. And I also want to acknowledge all the people across all the colleges and universities and the city staff who made all these classes possible. We're really grateful for your effort.
Thank you very much. Jeff, do we have it queued up, the video from? Yes, okay. So there's two more pieces of business. This is one of them. So a number of you filled out a form at the beginning, the survey link, and now we're going to have a very quick video on the next steps for that. You might have already received an email on this, but this is, please pay attention to this video.
Hi everyone, my name is Darshi Javier and I am a PhD student in Planning and Geography at the University of Toronto. As you may remember, I'm also the graduate researcher for CivicLabTO, and we're excited to launch the second and final survey for our project. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I really hope you guys all had a great semester. As a reminder, we created a set of surveys to better understand how we can improve the course for future cohorts and ensure others have this opportunity as well. Not only will your responses help better the course, but we also aim to write a journal article and report about the extent to which classes like this affect civic education and engagement. So in order to do this, we really need your help. Huge thanks to those of you who filled out the first survey. We need you to fill out the second and final survey as well. For those of you who participated in the first survey, please look out for an email to complete the second survey from my University of Toronto email address, t.jayaveer@mail.utoronto.ca. You'll receive a personalized individual link from myself. Please do not forward or share this with others. This is your personal survey link that is connected to the answers you gave in the first survey. You have until 5 p.m. on December 8th to complete it. We would really appreciate your participation, and we totally understand you guys are prepping for finals right now, and greatly appreciate your time. Thank you again, and bye for now.
Okay, that's that. One more piece to go. So for those of you who don't know, this is the 5th time that we've offered this course. And so we've cycled through like literally hundreds of students. And there's been one person on Toronto City staff that has journeyed with these crazy 8 professors trying to do some good at the colleges and university levels. And that person is Jeff Moore. And as a way of saying thank you, 5th anniversary, his kids are even here to see this honor. Jeff, you've been amazing. You have really done a great job getting some of the best speakers, high order speakers for us here in this course. And we are deeply appreciative of this effort, and how we show that is this is a gift basket from the professors, but also from all of us, symbolically, the students here, for the good work that you've done and the students have done. And you know what, if it's okay, as we break, maybe for 30 seconds, if the professors could come, we'll take a picture with Jeff and bring his kids down here as well. Kids, you got a great dad. He does great work. He's a great civil servant, and we're very proud that he is our friend. So. Okay, that's it. So feel free to hang around, and but don't go, Jeff. We're going to take a picture of you with you right here. Kids can come down as well. We'll take that picture. But in the meantime, you can also come to city staff and ask your questions as well. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great rest of your life.
Oh, the weather outside is frightful.